Before starting the video, make sure you go to your settings and turn your quality to a better quality. If you are on mobile view, you can go to the settings in the top right, click on advanced, and then select your quality there. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe with the bells on.
Get into like the CIA's involved in the Iran-Contra deal. A younger crowd like us, they don't know a whole lot about this. In Nicaragua, there was a big communist group. They were the Sandinistas is what they were called. The U.S., they funded some other groups in Nicaragua to kind of fight against them. They were communist. That's why the U.S. hated them.
Yeah.
Anything to do with the communism, the U.S. is like, just drop a bomb on them.
Yep.
They were going to provide funding for this other group, the Contras, to kind of fight against the Sandinistas. And at the same time this was going on, the Iran-Contra deal, they had the stuff in Iran, Iraq, which is how it became Iran-Contra. It all connects together at some point. But they originally started Iran. They needed money for stuff, and the U.S., they didn't want to just give them money. They just said, hey, here's 300 missiles. Have fun with them.
Yeah.
But there was a guy by the name of Anastasio. He was the leader of Nicaragua from 1967 until 1979. He was overthrown by the communist group, the Sandinistas. This was during Ronald Reagan's term as president of the United States. In 1981, which is where he took office. He basically canceled $15 million payout of a $75 million package to Nicaragua, reversing the whole Carter administration deal that he had worked out with them on policies.
So he basically took that deal and threw it in the trash from
like, hey,
the Carter administration.
$75 million, you get whatever. November 17th of 1981, Reagan signed a National Security Directive 17 towards authorizing provision of covert operations to anti-Sandinista forces. So it was like, if you're against these guys, you got our backing 100%. So they continued support to try and overthrow the Sandinistas from government in Nicaragua. December of 1983, 2 years after, there's a compromise reached, and Congress passed a funding cap for 1984 of $24 million for aid to the Contras. It's kind of like similar to what we're doing now with aid to Ukraine. But on October 17th of 86, Congress then approved $100 million in funds to CIA, or the Contras. So here's a quote from Dennis Dale, former chief of an elite DEA enforcement unit. He said, in my 30-year history in the Drug Enforcement Administration and related agencies, the major targets of my investigation almost invariably turned out to be working for the CIA. And I actually have a kind of a timeline that I'll talk about that seems to me wherever the U.S. has wars going on or political conflict, there's always something to do with drugs there.
Okay.
As I'm sure many people see in the U.S., drugs is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's also a huge moneymaker. Like, I mean, you can make a crap ton of money from drugs. But in 47 to 1951 in France, the CIA arms, sends money and disinformation programs to kind of coerce criminal syndicates and to control of labor unions and form communist parties. This basically allowed them to gain political influence and control over like the docks in these countries for money. Started to kind of cement long-term partnerships with mafia drug distributors, which turned this area in France into a kind of post-war heroin capital of the Western world.
Yeah.
They started opening their first heroin laboratories in 1951, just a few months after they started coercing them into what they wanted to do. During the early 50s in Southeast Asia, the National Chinese Army, organized by the CIA to wage war against communist China, became the opium baron of the Golden Triangle. So Bermuda, Thailand, Laos, that whole area.
So how did America have involvement into that?
They orchestrated all of this.
Yep.
So like the last one I said, the Chinese National Army, CIA organized that group to fight against the communist China. And just so happens to be where the CIA goes becomes the drug capital of the world.
So, like, in this time period, basically the CIA was going there, and like the guy said from the DEA, right? He said that his main targets for the investigation were CIA workers, correct?
Yeah.
And so they were obviously taking these spots for, known drugs, right?
Yep.
And I'm guessing exporting them to the U.S. or wherever. And is that what you're trying to say?
I'll kind of get into a little bit of how it comes into the U.S. part.
Yep, go ahead.
But, for example, like in Brazil, and that whole area with Pablo Escobar.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody knows Pablo Escobar.
100%, yep.
That whole organization, they are being investigated by the DEA. I mean, sure, somebody's watched the series Narcos.
Yeah.
It's a good series.
Yep.
But what a lot of people don't know is there's a lot of CIA deals that were worked out with the Pablo Escobar organization.
Mm-hmm. So if you had to guess, like, what kind of things, like, were they negotiating with him or, like, trying to talk to him about?
Not a lot of people know this, but Pablo Escobar was not the head guy of the cartel there. He was a poster child for the cartel. He made money for him, and that was it. The people who are above him and actually run the show, they're large companies. People don't know this. They're, massive corporations. Probably people in the U.S. who have nothing or probably never been to that area of the country before.
Mm-hmm. Probably just have ties.
Yeah, that's all they want to do is make money. Peak of Escobar's deal, he was bringing in, I think it was $30 billion a year. I'm sure they got their good cut of it too.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
So I think that's what it was, is they wanted to know who was like the top dogs of the actual.
Because they know there was more.
Oh,
they knew there was more. Yep. There's more to the chain.
Still to this day have never been caught.
Mm-hmm.
They've gone that long without being caught. And this is kind of a little off topic here, but the Sinaloa cartel, they didn't get formed in Sinaloa, Mexico. They were formed in L.A.
Mm-hmm.
They just got their drugs from Sinaloa, Mexico.
Yep.
El Chapo, he was not the head guy of the Sinaloa cartel. He was their poster child.
Mm-hmm.
He got greedy, and the actual head guys, who have still never been caught to this day, didn't like him. And they said, "Here, U.S., have your guy that you've been looking for."
Mm-hmm.
And then he's now in prison.
Yeah, I know.
US.
It's so insane to think about, because like I actually somewhat kind of know about that in a way. Like I've seen documentaries and stuff about it, but even though El Chapo is like in prison, it's gonna keep going.
Oh yeah.
Like the drugs are still gonna be being imported to the U.S. through tunnels, fucking mules, people that haul shit for thousands of dollars, right? Drugs. It's still gonna happen, and I think, taking him down might be a step in the right direction, but it's not going to slow anything down.
Somebody's just going to step in his place.
Exactly. His son's still alive, right? Yeah. Did you hear about
Actually, I think he's in prison now, too.
Is he?
I think so.
Did you hear about, I guess, he was out partying, right? El Chapo's son. Yeah. And they ended up, trying to, arrest him or something like that. Yeah. But they said, if you try to arrest him, basically, they're going to open fire on, the whole citizens crowd. I think they might have released him after that. Yeah, they did. They let him go. They literally let him go because of that.
In prison. I don't think it might be him, but there's somebody else. But it's nuts. They basically control Mexico.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
A lot of the citizens in Mexico like them. They build roads for them. They build schools. They build churches.
Yep. It's unfortunate, but you kind of got to think of it from, their perspective. They don't have anything.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like their president in a way, because they're making in all the money, they're bringing in all the business and infrastructure. So
yeah, but I guess we get back on topic with this. Yep. But that area, the Golden Triangle, so Burma, Thailand, Laos, that became the largest source of opium and heroin. Mm-hmm. Air America, the CIA's principal airline that they use, flew drugs all over Southeast Asia.
Wow.
There's flight records showing that they go from here to these guys to over here to these other guys.
So they used a private CIA airline to bring them into America?
Yeah, they at this point, they're not coming into America. They're just kind of distributing it across Southeast Asia.
Mm-hmm. And probably taking fees and money.
You already know.
Yeah.
They're using that to support. Long story short, at the end of this, they kind of use all this money to support the Contras fight against the Sandinistas.
Mm-hmm.
But in the 50s all the way to the early 70s, so about 20 years in Indochina, the U.S. military, their involvement in Laos and other parts, Air America flew opium and heroin throughout the area. Many GIs and veterans became addicts, unfortunately. A laboratory built at the CIA headquarters in northern Laos was used to refine heroin at the CIA's laboratory.
Really? That's insane.
After about a decade of American military intervention, Southeast Asia became the source of about 70% of the world's illicit opium.
Wow.
So right where the CIA is refining heroin, that's the largest
distribution centers, basically. Yep, yeah.
The largest.
Yeah, I mean, it's just insane though, like, because obviously back in this era, drugs were kind of becoming huge, and I don't think it's really gone away. I mean, I think if anything, it's kind of gotten a little increase.
I think back in this time, like the 70s and stuff, it was more of certain areas of the country it was bad, but now it's very widespread throughout the U.S.
Yep, it's everywhere.
So now we kind of move into Central America. Basically, they came out with a series of documents from operations linking the U.S. the U.S. and CIA to the Contras, cocaine cartels, etc. They were obsessed with overthrowing the leftist Sandinista government in Nicaragua, the Reagan administration. Officials tolerated drug trafficking as long as the traffickers gave support to the Contras. So this is how this stuff started coming into the U.S. The president himself said he didn't care as long as you were going against these guys.
Wow.
Do what you want.
Anything to battle against communism, right?
Yep.
Damn.
1989, the Senate Committee on Terrorism and Narcotics and International Operations, or otherwise known as the Kerry Committee, concluded a 3-year investigation by stating there was substantial evidence of drug smuggling through the war zones on the part of individual Contras. Contra suppliers.
So they finally kind of figured it out.
Yeah. Yep. Mercenaries. Whoever worked for the Contras was doing drug trafficking, basically. I mean, this is how
whatever part of the government, yeah. Yep.
U.S. officials were involved in Central America. Senior U.S. policymakers were not immune to the idea that drug money was a perfect solution to the Contras' funding problems.
Yeah. Basically, members of the CIA, or is that what it was, right? Members of the CIA?
A lot
they were
people.
Different government officials, I guess, that are corrupt, were working together to fund the Contras, right? But through drugs.
Yeah.
And to fight, obviously, against the Communist Party that was there.
Yeah.
And they got caught. And
eventually they got caught, and a lot of, Oliver North, he went to prison.
Do you know how they figured out about it, or just yeah?
Well, I'll get into that a little bit later.
Okay.
I don't even know if you can consider it corrupt. I mean, the president of the United States himself is saying, "Hey, do what you got to do."
Just a dirty way of doing something, right?
I mean, that's how the U.S. has always operated.
Yeah.
Whatever they want to get done, they'll do it one way or
another. Yep.
Whether it's good or bad, they're going to get it done. In the 80s and 90s, we started getting into Afghanistan, military and CIA.
Yep.
The CIA specifically supported Mujahideen rebels engaged heavily in drug trafficking. I mean, these are rebels in Afghanistan. It's probably not something you want to support.
Yeah,
but the CIA did because they were heavily involved in drug trafficking. The output provided up to 1/2 of the heroin used annually in the United States.
Wow.
Just from Afghanistan.
That's insane.
I mean, a lot of people think we went to the Middle East because of oil.
Yeah.
I mean, it looks to me like there's more money in heroin in the U.S. than anything.
100%. I mean, it could be both, too.
It might be.
It could be both.